Welcome to the Tony Rossetti Podcast. I guess that's what we're going to call it today. This is a special edition. So anyways, we're from the Center for Media Intervention at Point Park University, and I'm here with
Cal Adomitis. Good to be with you, Tony. Talking a little Pittsburgh football and Pitt sports, so looking forward to it.
Man, it's a pleasure having you. So I'm going to get right into it. So my first question off the bat is, why was Pitt your number one choice for school?
Absolutely. So, to be completely honest, growing up, Pitt wasn't always like my go-to team to root for. Don't hold this against me, but my dad actually went to Penn State, so I grew up rooting for Penn State in some regards as a little kid, and obviously still rooted for Pitt, and especially Pitt hoops when they were really having some glory years there with Jamie Dixon. But once I got to high school and was trying to get recruited to play tight end at some D1AA, like D2 type schools. But long story short, was also pursuing long snapping and had gotten a preferred walk-on from Pitt, and then had a little injury my senior year to my knee that sidelined me in terms of tight end fullback. So things kind of fell through with that, but Pitt stuck with me, and, and kind of deep down, I knew I was most motivated as well to try to play at the Power 5 level. So really wasn't until later in high school that I became a Pitt man. But, once I got to Pitt and, put on the script for the first time, there was no going back after that.
Yeah, and, just tell me, how was it going from being, a tight end to a long snapper? How was the adjustment for that?
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, obviously, there's part of it just long snapping kind of genetically started clicking for me pretty quickly. It's something that obviously anybody can do to a certain extent, but also there was an aspect of where I just felt like I was catching on really quickly with it. And, the reason I originally started long snapping was my junior year in high school. We were going into the season, one of the top 20 teams in the country. We were stacked team, and I was, basically just fighting for time as a tight end, but still not to the point that would, constitute getting scholarship offers yet. And my dad was the one who just said, hey, long snapping is an additional way to get on the field. And in addition to that, teams are starting to give guys scholarships and put guys on scholarship just to long snap in college. And so that was my junior year when I really started getting serious about it. And then it worked out well, like I said, because, going into my senior year was when I did the whole camp circuit and went to Pitt's camp as a long snapper and got that preferred walk-on. And, had I not, who knows if I ever would have even played college football with things kind of not panning out as a tight end.
Yeah, and, just tell me how it was, not only going from tight end to long snapper, but, becoming a long snapper and adjusting from, a high school level to a college level. How was it stepping up into that Power 5 conference?
Yeah, so, I definitely feel like my football experience at Central helped prepared me because, as a tight end and fullback at Central, Coach Sheridan, who's, one of my good friends now, he's definitely a tough coach and held really high standards and pushed us really hard and just kind of instilled a good work ethic so that when I got to college, I wasn't just at practice, sitting on the sideline, snapping a couple balls and then just drinking Gatorade, hanging out. I just kind of had that instilled work ethic to, make use of my time. And that's what helped get me on the field immediately. Just, anytime the coach would look over, I'd be doing something or snapping balls or doing a drill or, even trying to hop into linebacker tackling circuit, stuff like that. And that definitely earned the respect of my coaches and my teammates and, enabled them to trust me to play at a young age as the long snapper, instead of having to sit a couple years and learn before getting on the field.
Yeah, and going back to Central Catholic, ton of players from Central Catholic in Division I now. You had DeMar Hamlin, and I think Brian O'Neill went there as well.
Bryson Gardner, yeah.
Bryson Gardner, yeah. What's it called? But anyways, how was it playing at Central Catholic and at Highmark Stadium?
Yeah, that was awesome. Some really cool Friday Night Light experiences just because that backdrop of, the train tracks behind you and then the city skyline, there's nothing like that. And for some of the bigger games, when we played Phil Jerkovic and Pine Richland there and some other just big games, it would be just a packed house and just an awesome experience, really unique high school football experience. And in terms of just the nature of playing for Central, just the level of competition just within the team, I think is one of the most crucial things to help you develop as a player. So it was an awesome experience, and I attribute so much of my success at the collegiate level to my experience playing for Central and those Friday night Highmark games.
Yeah, and speaking about Phil Jerkovich, you guys played against him during like the COVID year where you guys lost by 1 point, sadly.
Yeah.
How was it, getting to play someone you played in high school as well?
It was really neat, and I've never, obviously we used to battle in high school, but he's always been a good guy. Seems like he has a level head, and it's just cool to play against other Pittsburgh guys. I think, once you get to college, obviously everyone's loyal to their high school, but at the same time, it's just fun to play other Pittsburgh guys. And Pittsburgh football is kind of a tight-knit community, and anytime you get to suit up against another WPIAL guy, it's a fun thing. And there was one play in particular where he was scrambling and got tackled near the sideline, and I was just kind of chilling out watching the defense, and he like rolled and kind of slid right in front of me, and he stood up, and I was like, oh, roll Vikes, roll Vikes. And he kind of like looked at me and just ran away, but I don't know if he'll remember that at all, but I thought it was pretty funny of me. So
Yeah, so like going back to Central Catholic now, that is like that's awesome though. Like it just also shows, small world after all. Like you played the same guy you played in college as well, and I'm sure there was probably many others too.
Absolutely.
But like with you being a long snapper as a freshman, you started pretty much every game. How did it feel to be able to start immediately?
It was cool. I mean, it was definitely surreal when I think of that 2017 season, I just smile because it was just such a whirlwind. And our punter was an old veteran, Ryan Winslow. He was an all-conference guy and heck of a punter, and he definitely took me under his wing and kind of showed me the ropes. And it was just great because I felt like I was like definitely they were looking out for me. Winslow was showing me the ropes, and I don't know how to say how grateful I was for that experience because I really, when I think about it, didn't know like the magnitude of what was going on and like the magnitude of Power 5 football, but I just knew I was doing what I really wanted to do. I was doing what I dreamt about doing, and just kind of tried to show up every day as an open book and give it my all, and just really thankful for the guidance from Coach Narduzzi and the veterans on that team to take me under their wing and just trust me to do a crucial role as a young freshman. And it was just an awesome season, and to cap it off with that win versus Miami when they were number 2 in the nation was just a really, really neat and memorable, freshman season.
Yeah, and my next question was actually regarding that.
Okay.
With they were stacked that year. I think they still had Homer, who plays for the Seahawks now, and there's probably NFL players scattered from there. Brevin Jordan as well. Can you take me through like the closing moments of the game, seeing like Kenny Pickett for the first time, like stepping on into the spotlight?
Yeah, it's interesting because with certain games, sometimes I just remember like the way like I felt that day going into the game compared to other games, and that was a game where I remember just thinking like it was senior night or senior day, last home game, and it was the day after Thanksgiving, and I just remember like trying to have so much fun and just being like, you know what, I want to play good for no other reason than to just like help send the seniors off right. And for whatever reason, like it just felt different that day. Like that was definitely the best ball that team played that whole season. And we just seemed like there was like a loose just confidence going into that game, nothing to lose. Sometimes when you got nothing to lose, that's when you're most dangerous. And we definitely were that day. And I even remember just like trying to be not necessarily goofy, but in another area, just kind of lightening the mood. Usually I wear like the standard Nike undershirt. But for that game, I remember for the Panther prowl, I had worn under my dress shirt like a white beater. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go out to warm-ups in my beater today. Like, why not? Like, it's the last game of the season. Like, let's just have a little bit of, I guess swagger. I don't know. But it was just a fun day, and everyone just played so well, and just things just clicked, and Kenny kicked off his career awesomely, and we sent off some of those seniors the right way.
And, speaking of the wife beater story, did you continue wearing that?
I actually did not. It's not very comfortable, to be honest, because with the tight-fitting jerseys and then, like, the cotton undershirt, it just, like, gets wet and heavy and kind of stretches out. So I didn't continue that, but it was definitely a fun, just random memory from that day.
And, like, speaking of, like, just, like, rituals or superstitions, like, do you have anything you do before the game that you have to do before the game that gets you fired up?
To be honest, I've not a ton. Like, I do have some, like, mental notes that I've gotten from, like, sports psychologists through the years that I always read. Usually whenever, like, just on our way to the stadium. So I'll kind of plan it out like, it takes me about 10-15 minutes to read through everything and kind of digest it. So I usually, whether it's the bus ride or just plan it out so that about 15 minutes before we arrive at the stadium, that's kind of my like subconscious trigger to like start getting ready and locked in. That's probably the one tradition or thing I usually do to prep myself. Other than that, I've honestly in a lot of ways try to just do more routines throughout the week, because game day, sometimes it's tough to really control your routine. There's just so much going on, but as long as you feel prepared going into the day, which that comes from having a good week of practice. So it's really during the week when I'm more routine oriented than the actual game day.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Thank you for letting me know about that. And I was just, certain players have different types of superstitions.
Absolutely.
Forgot how to speak there for a second. But anyways, let's go into 2018. And one game when I think of special teams in particular is definitely the game against Syracuse that season.
Okay.
Just because of, and this is 2018 when Alex Kessman hit 2 55-plus field goals.
Absolutely.
And also
homecoming victory.
Yeah, so, you're part of the special teams. How did it feel to help represent special teams and get the team to win, really help the team get the win, because without those field goals, there's no overtime.
Yeah, it was just a really fun game, and it was cool, too, because the prior year, Kess had also kicked the Carrier Dome record for the longest field goal in 2017. Unfortunately, we lost that year, but for whatever reason, when we played the Orangemen, Kess was just locked in. But yeah, that was a really fun game, and homecoming's always fun too, because there's just some extra energy around the stadium, and always a cool like guest captain we have come back for homecoming. But it was just awesome, just a day where when one of your teammates is just hitting on all cylinders and like doing and playing to like the maximum of their potential, you just get in a good rhythm, and it was just fun. And that's kind of games like that. I don't even really think about like the, I guess, crucial situations we were operating in, just more kind of the feeling of being locked in, and like it just didn't matter what the circumstance was. Like we knew if we got the ball down, Kess was going to nail it, and like that, he was just on fire. And it was fun too, because after the game, Kess was getting some like media love, and they'd brought him into like the media room to do a post-game like interview type thing. And I forget if it was EJ, who's our head media guy, or Coach Powell. I think they both suggested Kess brought the Holder and I both back there for the interviews as well. So it was cool. We were just like standing next to the podium, like his posse. So it was a really fun game, and just a cool game where Kess he couldn't miss. He was on fire.
And what's even crazier is like the fact that there was a delay that game too.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Which was like it was like almost an hour, I think.
Yeah, because we were beating them pretty handily before the delay, and then after the delay, they mounted kind of a comeback to set it into overtime. And I remember sitting in the locker room talking to our strength coach. I was like, what's the like protocol on the delay? And he was like, and he literally said straight up, he's like, we'll wait here until 8:30 p.m. and if we don't start the game by then, we'll play the rest of it tomorrow. And I was like, okay, let's get this going. Like I do not want to sit here until 8:30 or go back home and then come back tomorrow and play. That'd be pretty rough. So I was glad the delay didn't last too long.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is, but I feel like Iowa State, like, I know this is off topic, but Iowa State, like every season at the beginning of the year, there's always a delay in one of their games. It's weird. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned Iowa State too, because the strength coach I was talking to back then, that whole staff ended up going to Iowa State. So maybe it's something with that staff.
Maybe they like it.
Yeah,
maybe they like having the little break in between the games.
Putting a little English in the clouds or something.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyways, my next question is, that same season, you guys went on an absolute tear. You guys beat Duke and finished up your win streak against Wake Forest to clinch that Coastal Division. And Wake Forest is going to be, a theme here with big wins. But, how was it being able to go back, 4 straight victories? What was behind it, and how did it feel to win 4 straight to get the Coastal?
Yeah, that was definitely neat, because, I mean, similar to any good team, I feel like a point in time in the season where you really start to feel like you're playing your best ball and the team's clicking. And I remember, I think it was after, I forget which game, but when it was like, I remember talking to my dad like after the game being like, if we win like next week versus Virginia, like, we'll be in first in the Coastal. And I remember Virginia when we went to play them in 2018, and it was like really rainy that game. I think they were ranked like 24, and it was just kind of sneakily like a really big game. But I think we were fully aware, like, hey, if we beat Virginia on this like Friday night game, despite our record, not being super stellar at this point in time, like, we'll be first in the Coastal and like on our way to the ACC championship. And I think everyone just got excited about that. And I mean, we had two absolute beasts in the backfield between Quadriolison and Darren Hall, and they caught fire, and Kenny was playing well. So it was just an exciting run when things just really started to click, and we were like, we're a lot better of a team than I think our record shows right now.
Yeah, and you guys definitely proved it against Virginia. And they were, that was like their first time in the top 25.
Yeah.
Like Matt Schaub, I think.
Exactly.
And you guys
ended it real quick.
And you guys beat them. It was like 23-13, I think.
Yeah, I want to say final was, maybe 20, something like that. We beat them by 2 scores, I remember, which was because in the second half of that game, it was just like one drive, Quadriolison, we'd hand it off to him. The next would be Darren, and they just both had like 100-plus yard games that night, and just were – I think we must have had the ball for literally 25 of the 30 minutes in the second half.
And I think they probably had the ball even longer and on that win streak when they played Virginia Tech that year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was fun, too, that senior night game.
So you guys made it to the championship, and you guys didn't get the results you wanted, obviously. But how was it being able to step onto the big stage, in the ACC championship?
Yeah, I mean, that game was, obviously we would have loved to find a way to pull out a win versus that Clemson team, but that's one of those games that you just learn so much from, and, I don't think this group has the success that we had this past year without, learning some tough lessons in a game like that, because, as much as you'd love to say, oh, we're ready for it, there's really nothing like the first time you play in a championship game. And I mean, that Clemson team they were the national champions. Like, they beat the crap out of Alabama like 2 weeks later. So they were the best team in the country, and we played them in a big game. And, unfortunately they beat up on us a little bit, but it just, that group of guys that played in that game, that ACC championship game in 2018, that were here this past season to play in it again, there was just such a more level of confidence of like, we've been here before, like, we don't need to do anything special, because that was something too. I feel like with that Clemson team, like, really good teams in big games, they don't do anything additional or different or get any extra really like amped up for the game. Like, naturally you get a little extra amped up, but they just like play the way they can play. And I feel like that's what, with this Wake Forest, ACC championship this past year, we just kind of weathered the storm. Like, we knew that they were going to find ways to score. So as long as we just kept doing our thing, like, we'd win in the end. And that's really kind of what happened. We just weathered the storm, and things started going our way, and just ended up pulling away with it in the second half.
Yeah, and I'm going to go, a little bit back to right after that season. And obviously your experience against good teams proved to be, good against UCF.
Absolutely.
Can you just talk to me a little bit about UCF? Because it felt like the whole game people were making plays. Like, Hamlin had a game-saving tackle. Pinnock played great defense against Davis. Can you just tell me your guys' mindset during that game?
Yeah, that was honestly, up until this past season, I think that was the most fun game I had played at Pitt, because they were 15 coming into town that year, and it was just like a beautiful day. And that was another one of those games where sometimes something just kind of felt different. Like, we just were loose. We knew it was a big game, but it wasn't like a kind of suffocating feeling. It was just like an uplifting of like, yeah, like, we get a chance to play a good team in front of our home crowd, and it's a beautiful day. Like, this should be a fun day. And we just kept making plays, and they're an explosive team. They scored, they got themselves back into that game, and ended up putting us in a position where, Kenny needed to drive down the field for the winning touchdown, which he did. And it was just a cool, for me, obviously not being a, 70 rep a game type guy, on offense or defense, I sometimes just am able to analyze like the feel on the sideline and just how the team feels. And that was just another day that, from my perspective, it seemed like everyone was just loose and having fun, and it didn't matter how many times they scored. Like, we were just going to bounce back and keep playing, and it came down to the wire. And by the end of the game, like, we still had the juice, and that's what, propelled us to win that one.
Yeah. And, that goes back to another thing I wanted to ask is, wow, what's his face? But Dylan Gabriel,
Yep.
incredible quarterback, and Trevor Lawrence, the year before. But who is like? Is there anyone that stands out to you that's like when you were on the sideline watching, like this is the best player I've played against?
Well, I didn't play against this guy, but I looked at Kenny a lot of times this year and said, might be the best football player I've ever seen in my life. But definitely Trevor Lawrence was like different. He just in that game, he was making throws in bad conditions. Like it was rainy. I don't know if you remember. It was pretty darn rainy that day. And he just was making throws and just as a big dude too. Like you see him on TV, like he obviously looks pretty tall, but looks kind of lanky. But I remember like after the game and like jogging past him, and I was just like, this dude's big. Like he was all of 6'5" or whatever he's listed as, and just like a big kind of big looking dude. And he definitely played just as big as he looked. And I just remember after that game, I was like, all right, that dude's he's definitely different. But I have to imagine as well that that's the way a number of teams felt, this past season after playing number 8. So,
yeah, and I'm gonna jump back to the 2019 season. So you guys didn't get the bowl you guys were anticipating, but you guys got your first bowl win. Like as you were a member on the team, how did the team feel getting the first bowl win for Narduzzi and for yourself?
For sure. I mean, just finishing with a win is great. Obviously sometimes it's easy to get caught up in like, oh, we want to play in this bowl game or that one. But no matter where you go, like you're going to have a good time. And just to finish the season with a win just lets you go into that off season with just a little bit of a better feeling. And that first day of winter workouts is just a little better when you finish with a win than when you finish with an L. So, just good getting that win. And unfortunately, would have loved to get the win this year, but still we battled, and I think, our team showed a lot of heart in that game. So it was by no means a bad game to finish out my Pitt career, but it's always good to win no matter what bowl game.
Yeah, and Michigan State's still Michigan State too.
Yeah.
They're always solid, but I'm going to go back to 2020 now. You guys started out 3-0, but the whole season kind of had an asterisk on it. How was that season, and how was it adjusting to all the COVID rules and stuff?
Yeah, that whole season was definitely just unique. I mean, I definitely learned a lot of valuable lessons in that season, but it was weird because you really would kind of go through your week of practice not knowing for sure if you're going to play. Every week we would see on Thursday, some team had 10 guys test positive, so the game was canceled. And it even happened with us versus Georgia Tech. Like we were waking up to go to practice, and all of a sudden we get like a standardized message from we have like that Teamworks app. I don't know if you ever heard. That's how like they communicate everything to everyone on the team. Mm-hmm. Get a Teamworks message like nobody come into practice. Like we'll send you a testing time. Like I guess it was. Now I'm blanking if it was us or Georgia. I think it was Georgia Tech, the one that actually had the positive test. But even so, they're like, you guys aren't going to have practice. Like we're not playing this weekend. We got to reschedule the game. So it was just weird, like going through your day-to-day grind. Just you definitely had to learn to take everything more day by day. Because even during camp, there was a point in time when the Big Ten was postponing, and I believe it was the Big 12. Everyone was waiting to hear their verdict because they were thinking that would tip the scale one way or the other, whether or not we'd play. And I remember one distinct day during camp where everyone was like dapping each other up and saying bye, like to the seniors, thinking that our season was going to be canceled. And then sure enough, like the next day we come back, had practice again, and we're like, okay, I guess maybe we might be all right. So it was weird.
Yeah, and you guys finished 6-5, but there were some games like against NC State, like you guys were a play away from being like an 8-3, 7-4 team. Like
that was definitely the difference this past year is those close games. Like we would just find a way to win because there was, literally I think of every season I had at Pitt. Obviously there were a couple games where things just kind of went south, but for most of the losses we had, it would be one score or a field goal. And then it's just like, dang, like if we can find a way to win those games, we're going to be a 10-2 team versus, a 7-5 team or a 6-6 team.
Yeah, and there was one good thing that definitely came out of 2020. Kirk Christodoulou, Ray Guy finalist. How did it feel to? You're the long snapper. How did it feel to be a key contributor to his success.
Absolutely. It was really exciting because, Kirk's put in a lot of hard work throughout the years, and with him being an Aussie, he has the capability to do some like the rugby style kicking that's become big in college. And 2020 was the first time where, he had a couple of years under his belt, and our coaches, made the decision to, let him do some of that stuff and just mix up the bag of kind of the looks we give more often, and he really capitalized on that and showed that he's an elite punter, and it was just really exciting to see him just catch his stride. And his confidence definitely went through the roof that season, and was just great to see him really catch his stride and finish out his career strong through 2020 and 2021, just after following that year.
Yeah, and there's one game like I remember when he first started playing. It was 2018 against Penn State. And, like, the special teams as a whole kind of just went downhill that game. But then, like, as it went on, you guys kept improving. And, like, last year, I think he had, like, 28 fair catches or something crazy like that.
He kicked a ton of fair catches, which is awesome. And he definitely, in a lot of ways, it was a little bit of a baptism by fire, like you said, with that, Penn State game was definitely tested, all of our salt a little bit, because it was just a big game that we obviously felt that we didn't have our best performance in. And, but, those are the kind of games that later on in your career you look back and you're like, I just learned so much, and, like, wish it wouldn't have costed what it costed, but at the same time, it just develops you so much, and you learn so much from tough games like that.
Yeah, and, like, you guys, special teams-wise, especially Castleman, you guys really stepped it up throughout the season, and it just shows, like, everything does kind of happen for a reason,
Absolutely, and especially with special teams, there's just the aspect of the more you get guys to buy in and take personal ownership of their role, the better you're going to play. And it just starts with, the guys, even your specialists, like Kirk and I and Kess, just buying in fully and helping bring other guys along. And there's always some great guys who, put in a lot of reps on special teams and help set the tone.
Yeah, and, you finally got promoted to, like, team captain. So I want to talk, like, how awesome was that to become captain of the team? It
was definitely, super, super memorable. It might be, obviously winning the ACC championship was just an awesome, unbelievable feeling. And I'd say only second to that is being named team captain, just because it was something that definitely validated, like, a lot of hard work. And just it was really cool for me because I definitely given my all over the past 5 years, and felt that I was trying to do everything I could to, help my teammates when I could and be a good example and just be, a leader on the team. And to be voted, one of the team captains just was cool for me because I was like, okay, I think, like, I've been doing the right stuff. Like, guys have been noticing, and I've been helpful and helping to maybe leave Pitt a better place than it was when I got there, and just keep moving the ball forward. So it just meant a lot from that regard. And it was kind of funny when they announced it. Coach Narduzzi, it was after practice during camp, and he was like, all right, and also, today, because it was the last camp practice, he's like, all right, and to finish up, I'm going to name, our team captains, the guys who were voted on to be team captains. And he started out and he's like, oh, no surprise, Kenny Pickett. And everyone's like claps for him. He's like, all right, Deslin Alexander, has been great for us on defense. He'll be one of our defensive captains. And Cam Bright, and then, everyone clapped for Cam. He's like, all right, yep, that's everyone. And then we started to sit up, and he was like, I'm kidding, sit back down. And then he was like, all right, last up, it might be the first time I've ever seen this, but, like, Cal Adomitis, our long snapper. And that was really cool, and got a cool, applaud from my teammates. So that was a really cool day.
Oh, that's such an awesome story. It's not a walk-on story, but it's similar to one where he's like, oh, wait, there's actually a captain for you.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome, though.
It was fun.
And, like, that year, I just, last year in particular, there was one game where I think everyone kind of got onto the field pretty much, and, like, it was just nonstop. New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Roughed them up a little bit.
Yep.
77-7, most scoring in a game for Pitt since, like, 1926.
Yeah.
And can you just, like, talk to me about your team's mindset that game when you guys went out there and just destroyed them?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, so that was the week after we had lost to Western Michigan. So, we knew that was our homecoming game, and we were just like, we just need to just pummel this team. Like, we obviously fumbled the bag a little bit versus Western Michigan, but nothing we can do about it now other than like make a statement that like we're not just, the same old Pitt teams from the past 4 years. Like we're a little different and we're a little better than we've been. And that was just a fun game where, obviously Kenny was just like hitting on all cylinders. Jordan was hitting on all cylinders. Like everyone was just flying around, and there was no hangover from losing to Western Michigan. Everyone's just like, no, like it's time to get back on the horse and like show that we actually are a better team than we have been in past years. And just with it being homecoming, just was a lot of energy and was a really fun day across the board. And it definitely helped us right the ship and get back on the right track and get some confidence back in us that like we're as good as we think we are, and we're as good as we'll go as far as we believe we can go, basically.
And that momentum continued. And my next question is, over 60,000 fans against Clemson. How was that game for you? Yeah,
that was awesome. That definitely is another just game that I'll remember for the rest of my life. I remember the feeling like when they played Sweet Caroline at the start of the fourth quarter, and there was no, even though, it was a pretty tight game for the most part, there was no like anxiety. There was no kind of guys being tight. Like we were all just like singing along, like we're going to win this, and it was just a good, confident, not like arrogant or anything, but just confidence that we knew we were going to win the game. And like after the game, when they started launching the fireworks, I remember seeing like a couple of our administrators on the sidelines literally like hugging each other, like in tears, like grown adults hugging each other, giving bear hugs and like shedding tears of joy. And I was just like, dang, like that was a meaningful win for Pitt at home. And that was just a super, super fun game. So I'll remember that one for a while.
And like you're talking about the fireworks, I remember I was at that game, like, and the fireworks started going off. I'm like, oh wow, like Pitt's back this year. Yeah. Would you say like that was the game that like you guys knew that you had a legitimate shot at winning the ACC?
Absolutely. That was the like little thing Coach Narduzzi had said leading up to that game is he gave everyone like a gold Sharpie. And it was a little corny, but it was fun. Like everyone bought in and loved it. He said, "This is going to be our signature win. Like carry this Sharpie with you the whole week. This is our signature win." And like after the game, we get in the locker room and we're all rowdy and said our like little post-game prayer. And then like Coach Narduzzi stands up and he's like, first thing, pulls out of his pocket, holds up the Sharpie, and he's like, signature win. And everyone just started going crazy. So it was cool. That was another cool part about this team is that everyone would buy in. Like stuff in past years when we'd do something like a little maybe cliche to try to get fired up, there'd always be guys kind of like feeling too cool for it or whatever. But we had fun with that kind of stuff this year and like committed to it, and it made it a lot of fun.
And speaking of like I don't want to say corny things, but like cliche kind of things, like how I know you didn't have to do it because you're a long snapper, but how did the dunking happen? Like, how did that get introduced? Yeah, that actually, I think we started that in 2019, actually. So we've been doing that for a couple of years, but it's just a fun thing. Like, I guess a healthy way to let, the defense get nice and rowdy and celebrate a turnover without, having to do it on the field. Because I forget what year when, like, I don't know if the rule changed or if guys just started like celebrating more, but now like in the NFL, every time it gets a pick, like everybody's on the field and celebrating, and like you still can't do that in college. So there had been times in prior years where we've been like a little close to be getting a penalty, but I think that was a healthy way of just like directing that energy back towards the sidelines, but still letting everyone have a good time after a turnover. Yeah, and like there's so many teams like Miami's turnover chain and stuff like that, but yeah, no. I think like the first game we saw that, it may have been Duke in like 2019. Yeah, it was definitely a little while ago. Mm-hmm. I think too maybe it stuck because there's a number of our defensive backs who are pretty good ball players, and I like to think that or they like to think that they could definitely play on the Pitt Hoops team. So we'll see. I don't know if they're quite of that caliber, but I've definitely seen some pretty good ballers in our locker room. Yeah, and I'm gonna go back to like football talk, like with like that whole season. You guys dropped the Miami game, and that was a safety, and I'm not like affiliate with the ACC, so I'm able to say it. That was a safety. But anyways, I agree. I'm just gonna say after that game, after the debacle, I should say, you guys won out. Yep. And what was going through your guys' heads like game by game, like after you guys ran the ACC? Like how did it feel, and what was going through you guys after each win? Yeah.
I think it just helped having a mature group and some good, older leaders on our team, because when we would play our best ball, like we would have stints in games where we're just like, I feel like we could play with anybody in the country. Like, I mean, Graham and I were just talking about like that first quarter versus UNC. It was just like, we should be like a top 5 team in the country. Like if we played every game like the way we played that first quarter versus UNC, So we just knew, just trying to go 1-0 every week and just trying to play as many good quarters of football as possible and just take it step by step was the best way to go about it. And I think as we got towards the end of the season, when we got to that Syracuse game, and it was like, look, like we've won, like we have a chance to win out. We have a chance to be the first Pitt team since I think 81 to win 10 games in the regular season. And I just remember like that week definitely was the first week where they really like started hammering like, look, let's win, finish the job, like win 10 games, be the first team in 30 years to do it, just like finish the job. And I remember it was really fun, like after that Syracuse game, Coach Doozy had just written just a giant 10 on the board in the locker room, and we were just all dancing around it because, I mean, it was, first time since the 80s that we won 10 regular season games.
And you did it at the right place, too, because I think people tend to forget that the Carrier Dome's actually a tough place to play in.
It is.
Yeah.
No matter, because, and I think, with the way Pitt and Syracuse just go back, way back, honestly, we've played each other every year since I think the early 80s, and it definitely is just like an old, like, Beast of the East rivalry game where like it gets chippy every time we play them, and that Carrier Dome is just like the air is like very stuffy in there. Like it's kind of they did some nice renovations, but it's always like a little like musty in there, and it's real loud. Like it almost feels like you're playing in like a hockey arena or something because the sidelines are super small, and it's just in a lot of ways too, Syracuse is like pretty like blue collar town, and a lot of the same clientele are Syracuse fans as Pitt fans. So it's just very similar in a lot of ways. But I'm glad that we've also had the upper hand in most of our meetings in recent years.
Oh yeah, and you guys have like practically owned them. Did you lose to them when you were there?
2017, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, my freshman year. Yep. But that was, I don't know if I'm sure you remember this, but that was the first time Kenny ever played for Pitt, was in that Syracuse game, because Max Brown got hurt, and then like the last drive of the game, Ben DiNucci's helmet came off, so that was the first time that number 8 stepped on the field. So
Speaking of Ben DiNucci, it's a crazy story about like transfers to JMU, and then he's in the NFL playing a Monday Night Football game for Dallas a couple years later.
That was wild. It was interesting because I know that was when he played at Pine. That was definitely a rival with Central as well. But he was a little older than me, so I can't say I was really much of a part of those Central Pine games back then. But with my brother being one of Central's captains back then too, definitely knew that that was a heated rival. But it was interesting, like playing with him and getting to know him, and definitely an interesting dude. Like I think anybody who's met him, like or played with him, will say he's definitely a funny guy. Like he's pretty interesting, like not in a bad way, but there's just a lot of things like, I don't know, that are just, he's kind of goofy. He's funny, but not a bad guy by any means.
Yeah, and like I think when he transferred there, they ended up beating like RMU like 73-7. I don't know if you remember seeing the score of that game.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact score, but it's always good to see someone kind of catch their stride and make a move that works out well for them. And sometimes that's all it takes, is just like a fresh start and a different coaching staff that you may see things a little more eye to eye with. So glad that his career went well over at JMU.
Yeah, and you mentioned your brother.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of him, how important has it been to have like an older brother who's also been experienced? He went to Princeton, was on the Colts practice squad. How important was it to have a brother, I guess you could say, like with you during your training?
Yeah, it's funny talking about it with him sitting right next to me, but it's you can't like describe the value of it. It's just like going to Central, like knowing that for I guess one of the ways that it's just most resounds with me is like when I was a sophomore and he was a senior, and like when you're a sophomore and you're playing your first like JV reps and you're like doing the scout teams and stuff, and like it can be pretty intimidating, especially at a school like Central where like the varsity, like they want to win state every year, and just with me and my buddies who were just figuring things out, and just knowing that like Graham was always going to like look out for us and like take us under their wings and just help us develop. Like they were never going to just beat up on us for no reason. Like they were going to compete with us and make us better, and hopefully we would make them better. So it was just great and made that whole season, so much fun to have like a senior class that kind of looks after you and takes you under their wing, where I'm sure at, other schools, or just even if I didn't have, Graham there as well, where it would have just been like me getting beat up on scout team and like questioning whether I even wanted to play football, where they really made us feel like a part of that squad and like important. And it helped us to buy in more wholeheartedly too, being the scout teamers, to help get them better.
And would you say that there's been like any like brotherly competition between you two as you guys grew up?
I mean, I'm sure, yeah, we're just competitive guys, like, but it's always healthy. Like, we always just are pumped to see each other doing our thing and just believing in each other and just excited for the future and hoping to definitely suit up either with or against each other, in the league as well. So that'll be coming soon.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm just gonna hop back to Pitt now, and we mentioned a little bit earlier about like Wake Forest and. You mentioned a little bit about Wake Forest earlier. You guys played them again in the ACC Championship. How was that? And was there a time in the game where you guys knew you had it in the bag?
I guess part of, definitely the easy answer is after Eric Hallett had that pick six, we were like, all right, like we're up by a couple scores, we should win this game. But I think the important part too of having an older squad is we didn't get too caught up in that and like start making goofy mistakes, because I just remember after AJ Woods had that pick and returned it almost to the house, like our sideline was just going ballistic, and like part of me just wanted to go absolutely nuts. But I remember just like grabbing Kirk and just being like, we need to get ready for field goal, like we got to stay locked in, like there's a lot of football left to play. And obviously everyone was fired up, but that was just another, I guess, difference with that game and this team than in prior years, where we're like, let's not like take the foot off the pedal. Like don't even give them a chance to like breathe. Like let's just finish this and just keep running away with it. So we definitely knew that we should win, after those interceptions, but there also was, everyone was just like, we need to run this score up as much as we possibly can and just like make a statement. So it was cool to see. It was just a cool thing to see like a team, like a mature team, not, start feeling himself halfway through the fourth quarter and then let up, a crappy score or something like that.
Yeah, I was watching the game from home. I sadly couldn't go down, but I thought it was hilarious because it was that one or the Peach Bowl game. I saw Graham on TV that day.
Yeah,
it was hilarious.
It might have been that one, because we were actually just earlier this week needed something to watch, so we started watching a little bit of the TV copy of that, because I don't think I ever actually had watched the TV copy. And then we were like, oh, we have this recorded, like we should watch it. And then I think it was like halfway through, we are like, oh, that's Graham.
Yeah, I just thought that was hilarious. Like, yeah, but anyways, my next question. I forgot what my next question was. It's about the after party of the game. Sorry, my mind went blank. But how was the after game, and how was after the game? How was the celebration?
Oh, it was just awesome. The confetti and everything, and just standing on the stage hoisting the trophy, and you could just tell how passionate like the Panther faithful were that were down there and just singing Sweet Caroline, and it was crazy. It's definitely the stuff you dream about as a little kid. And we stayed out on the field as long as we possibly could, and then got in the locker room. Like my dad had actually brought in a couple cigars that he tossed down to me and Kirk when we were heading into the locker room. I went in the locker room, lit up some cigars, just like took a bunch of pictures with the trophy, and we were just hanging out in there. I don't even know how long we were in there, but it had to have been like an hour and a half, where we were just like, dude, we won the ACC championship. Like finally, like how many years have we broken it down every day on like ACC champs to like, just try to manifest that energy, and like finally we did it. Like we won the ACC, like we won 11 games, like Pitt football is on the right trajectory. And it was an unreal day. And then it was cool too, back at the hotel, I can't disclose all the details, but definitely, had a good time with the teammates and had a couple cold ones, and they took care of us well in the hotel and made sure we had a good time and celebrated accordingly. And it was just an awesome day with just an awesome group of guys, and certainly another day that I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and that's so great to hear that. Like, I was just so ecstatic when you guys won it.
Absolutely.
And now I'm going to move on from football, and we have to talk about it, and I think it's absolutely incredible. Let's talk about, like, the Children's Hospital and, like, the raising of $94,000. Why did you start it, and what were some of the challenges with it?
Yeah, so, I mean, the original, I guess, mustard seed of the idea goes all the way back to my freshman year at Pitt, and my hair was just starting to get a little longer, and then the two of the guys I lived with in Sutherland Hall, Owen Drexel and Carter Warren, they were like, Cal, like, how much would we have to pay you to cut your hair? And I was just like, I don't know, like $2,000. And like, oh, like, no way we're paying you that. Like, we should see if we can do like a GoFundMe or something like that. And I was like, I don't know if you want to, but also then as soon as they looked into it, realized kind of that's like against NCAA rules, so we never followed through with it. But then coming back to the senior year, just with some of the new like name, image, and likeness policies, realized like, oh, like we can kind of use like our platform for different stuff, and nowadays. And then the idea was like, dude, you should you should actually see like how much money we can get people to pay to cut your hair. And then kind of with that, I was like, well, we could do something like actually like meaningful, like to make an impact. And just being from Pittsburgh, you kind of always grow up hearing about Children's Hospital and all the great work you do. And my oldest brother used to be involved with the Children's Hospital telethon back in the day, and kind of just the initial idea came to me after picture day. Went and talked with Celeste Welsh, who's our head of community service, and was just like, hey, do you think we would do like a fundraiser, like set a goal, and then if we reach the goal, like have kids from Children's Hospital shave my head, and we'll give all the money to Children's Hospital. And she loved it. Told Chris LaSala, who's our AD of operations, and then EJ Borghetti, our media guy, and got us in touch with Children's, brought them in, talked with them. They were ecstatic about the idea too. And since they had worked with Brett Kiesel for like the Shear the Beard thing back in the day too, they're like, oh, we already we have a good framework, like we know what we need to do in terms of like campaigning it through media. And it also certainly helped that there was a lot of excitement around our team, just to channel some of that excitement into another good way to give back to the community. And it was really neat because just the more people we talked about it, every person was just as excited as the last. And before you know it, College Game Day had said something about it, and during big broadcasts, like they'd always mention it. And it was cool too because being on the AFCA Good Works team, they pledged like a $10,000 donation to a charity of my choosing. So we kind of used Children's Hospital and Cal's Kids as the the middleman for Children's Hospital for that. And then Coach Narduzzi and his family donated $10K, which was just like unbelievable, which was awesome. And then there's another, I think it was after VTech, the Vardabadian family, who's donated a lot of money to the softball program, made like a $20,000 donation.
Oh, wow.
So it was just awesome. Like it would be really cool. Like after we'd have a big conference win, I would check my phone after the game and I'd see a text from Celeste and be like, OMG, like so-and-so just donated $10,000. And it was cool. Like that we were channeling, a lot of that great energy from winning towards another good cause as well in the community. So it was just had a lot of help from a lot of awesome people, and it was just awesome the way that it snowballed into something really special.
That's beautiful, honestly.
Yeah, it was
and
awesome.
It's all for you take something that was just a silly thought and you made it beneficial, and that's what's God. It's just like something God would love.
It was just cool to have the chance. Like I've definitely think my faith has been helpful as in just my development as a person. And I've kind of always thought and prayed that all right, like God, like if you put me in a position where I can like give back and make an impact, like help me to do that. And if you can help me put me in a position to do that, like I'll do it, and hopefully, not get caught up in myself and still, kind of remain grounded and humble. And that was an awesome kind of tangible way to make sure, my heart was still in the right place and was still, playing the game for the right reasons.
Amen to that, man. Amen to that. And do you plan on continuing fundraising as you keep going?
Absolutely. Just through the people I've met, at Children's Hospital and some of the families I've gotten to meet, it's just like the work that, people do at children's hospitals throughout the nation. It's just, invaluable. Like it's amazing, and like people that work there are real life superheroes, and I'll definitely, no matter where I end up, look forward to hopefully continuing to work, in the community and especially in like Children's Hospital and pediatric cancer, because it's just a cause that, they need every dollar that they can get, and it's all going to a great cause. So I'm thinking, honestly, the next step might be, I have a little bit of a winter beard growing right now, so I might, unless Brett Keys will put like a trademark on it, might do like a beard, kind of similar concept, grow the beard out and then raise some money for Children's Hospital, get involved, with whatever city I'm in, and, maybe shave the beard. So I'm brewing something up, over this winter.
Please do. I'll be glad to help out with that too.
Awesome.
and I'm gonna go. I'm gonna finish up here on my last note, and it just really I just want you to talk to me about like the draft combine, and you're the only long snapper in it. How did it feel to be the only long snapper? Did you feel honored by that?
Absolutely, it's definitely a great honor, and it's neat because you kind of have a little leeway to do things your own way. Like you're the only snapper there, so they can't really say like, oh, do this or do that. Like, because I think I was the first snapper to ever do like all the combine testing, and not that all of it was anything, to write home about. I did decent on the 40 and the bench, which I was happy about. But like, just it was cool because I just got a chance to kind of really show them what type of person I was, and like I was the only snapper there, so like me or not, like they had to deal with me. And so it's just a cool opportunity to like really get to know a lot of coaches and scouts and GMs, and whether it was against their will or not, they had to pay some attention to me and get to know me a little bit throughout those couple days. And it definitely was a grind. I was telling some of my teammates and our punter, I think I snapped like 60 punts and 75 field goals on Sunday, just between the 6 or 7 punters and 5 field goal kickers. So it was like a ton of snaps, but it was just great. Like gave me an opportunity to just like go to work and like show these coaches, this is just how I go about my business, and I'm just gonna, no matter what team takes me, like you're gonna get my full effort. I didn't want to come in there and be complaining, oh, like I have to snap so many balls. Like I just wanted to like, whether, obviously I'll get tired at some point and I might not have quite the pop on the ball, but like I just wanted them to see like when I do get fatigued, when I am tired, when, my back's up against the wall a little, like this is how I work. And I was really, really grateful to have that opportunity.
Yeah, and long snappers, especially now, they could be on teams for 10 to 15 years. How does it feel to know, like, if you do make a team, that you can have a long run in the NFL?
Yeah, it's certainly exciting, but I do have to say, like, just the nature of the position, you got to take it snap by snap, because I don't think it'll ever get any easier. It'll only get more and more challenging the longer you play. So, just really taking it day by day and learning to appreciate every time I get to suit up is going to be crucial to playing as long as possible, because it's as soon as you start to feel comfortable that you'll find yourself out of a job. And that was something too that I was talking with Don Mulbach, who was the snapper for the Lions for like 16, 17 years. He was at the Senior Bowl and got a chance to sit with him for 45 minutes and just pick his brain. And he was just like, as a long snapper in the NFL, like you have to be perfect. Like whether it's warm-ups, like practice reps to game reps, every snap's got to be perfect. And the moment you mess up or start to get lackadaisical, you're going to have 5 coaches, down your back just saying like, what's going on, man? Like, what are you doing? Like why are we even paying you to do this if you can't do it? Like there's not a lot of friends in the business. So you just have to be a good guy, a good teammate, boost up those around you and just be the most consistent guy in the room every day.
Yeah, and my last thing is, what's next for you? Now, obviously, like the NFL draft is, but like, what can we expect from you, next?
Absolutely. So, I mean, the thing coming up soonest is our pro day, is next Monday. So, putting in the finishing touches for that. Should be, mostly just snapping, since I did all the testing at the combine. But looking forward to having the chance to work with Kirk one more time before we, head to whatever teams we're heading to. And then following that, a couple, private workouts, starting to get some private workouts with teams scheduled and get those things in the works. And then, I guess by the time that finishes up, we'll be pretty close to draft day. So it should be an exciting next month.
Yeah. Oh, and I completely forgot to mention the Senior Bowl. How was that?
It was great. It was definitely prepared me for the combine a lot because it's you definitely going for 10 to 12 hours a day between meetings, interviews, informal interviews, formal interviews, practice, film review. It's a busy week. It was very exhausting, but just a great experience and a great opportunity to get to know a lot of guys that you're going to be, going into the league with next year, and the guys in your rookie class, and also get to know the scouts and GM, or I guess more coaching staff and scouts of some teams. And it definitely just prepared me for, or is getting me more prepared for just some of the differences between college and the NFL, where I certainly love the game just as much as I ever have, but you can definitely tell in a lot of ways that, the NFL, it's a business, and if you don't want to do it, or you don't want to do something the way that they coach you to do it, they're just going to find someone else, and there's not as much development that takes place, unless you're a first round guy that they're investing millions and millions of dollars into. Everyone else, it's like you're either going to do what we tell you to do when we tell you to do it, or we're going to find someone else who will, because there is no shortage of guys who will do it. So it's definitely starting to learn that reality a little bit as well.
Yeah, and that's all I have for today, and I just wanted to thank you again for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me, Tony. It was great talking with you.
Yeah, you too. Good luck at the what's it called? Pro Day?
Pro Day,
yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, but thanks again.
Yeah, no problem.